How's it going, everybody? Steve from Broken Galaxy here, and something a little bit different today. I'm not here to talk about video games. I'm actually here to talk about toys. Toy collecting has been a big part of my life for probably about the past, I'd say 10 years or so. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that when I was growing up, I had a decent amount of toys. Oddly enough, I didn't really have a lot of video games. Always definitely more toys than video games. And my parents never threw anything out. We never had any garage sales. Nothing, unless it got like really broken or messed up, ever really got thrown out. And last year, with everything that's going on in the world and living in a state that really locked things down, which to be honest is a good thing. I'm not complaining about that. Couldn't really get out and look for toys. I'm not really one to go online. I will if I have to. Some stuff is only available online, and if you don't get it right when it goes for sale, your only hope of getting it is to pay a ton at maybe a store that got one and they're upcharging you for it, or to go on eBay and have to pay those prices. So I really try to avoid going online as much as possible. So this past year, outside of kind of a few online orders here and there, I didn't pick up a lot of toys. But over the past couple of months, it kind of got spurred on by the fact that at the end of last year, my wife and I actually got to go to my parents' house and get up into the attic and go through a lot of the toys I had as a kid. We brought back, God, probably like 4 garbage bag fulls worth of stuff. Went back a couple other times and grabbed some more stuff. A lot of that stuff needs to be cleaned up, and I haven't gotten a chance to do it or not. But as things have gotten a little bit better where we live, I've actually been able to get out and do some toy hunting. Actually, in the city that we live in the surrounding kind of area, I'd say within 20-30 minutes drive, there's really actually not that much in terms of toy store. Now, there are plenty of stores that sell toys, but the few comic book shops that carry stuff like NECA, Diamond, the kind of stuff that I'm into, unfortunately, all of them really go above MSRP. A lot of the stores, unfortunately, they're the ones that go to Walmart and Target, buy all the stuff up, bring it back to their shop and sell it for double. And it's just, I don't really want to support that kind of thing. I'm not really into that kind of thing. So when we go toy hunting, we typically have to venture out a little bit within about a 2-hour drive or so. So I gathered up some of the stuff I've grabbed on my last 2 toy hunting trips. One was about an hour and a half away. Actually, I guess both of them were about an hour and a half away, but in opposite directions. And I was able to pick up some cool stuff. So why don't we take a look at everything? I'm gonna be honest here. I am definitely probably going to ramble much more than I would like to in this video, but I figure it gives us an opportunity to just kind of hang out and look at some cool toys and talk about stuff. So I, over the past year and a half, started collecting wrestling toys, and it's kind of weird that I waited so long, and honestly I wish I hadn't, because some of the stuff I want is very hard to find and very expensive. I'm a lifelong wrestling fan, lifelong toy collector for the most part, and it never put 2 and 2 together until very recently. So I'm going to go through some of the wrestling stuff I got first, since that makes up about half of what I got. So to begin, for some of the newer stuff that came out, WWE just did Legends Series 7, either 7 or 9, don't quote me on that, but they did a new $1 Million Man, and it's a pretty nice figure. Obviously, he's in the suit, he's got the briefcase with him right there, the $1 Million Championship right there. Belts are always a commodity in figures because you typically can be able to use them in more than one figure. With him, unless you've got a Virgil figure, you're really only going to be putting it on him, unless, I guess, at some point they do a Ringmaster Steve Austin, but it's a pretty good figure. It's a really solid figure. Some of the Legends figures have been a little hit or miss, but I like this one quite a bit. Ted DiBiase is one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. I have a framed photograph of him in my home that he autographed to me, and it's kind of a weird thing. I got to meet him a couple years ago, and it was pretty neat. But in the same series as him they did a mid-90s Undertaker. And this is still very much in the old Western Undertaker stylings that he had when he first debuted. This figure actually does come with the white mask he was wearing when he suffered that facial injury in the mid-90s. I was never a big fan of that look, so I just took it off, and I think it looks a little bit better that way. You can probably figure out that I do open my figures. I don't keep them in boxes. It just having them in boxes would take up way too much space. Some stuff I will keep in the box, but it's very few and far between. I really, really don't like keeping stuff in the box unless it's something that maybe came from a different country and just the packaging is really interesting. But yeah, I typically, as we say, let him breathe. My wife actually went out of town separate from the two toy hunting trips that I went, and was able to pick me up some stuff at I want to say it was almost like a very small comic and toy show that happened. And one of the things she got, nothing crazy, but I always loved how goofy this figure was. And this is the Series 1 WWF Slammers Farouk. And this looks, I'm going to see if I can get him up close there. That looks really not a lot like Ron Simmons. I'm going to say that looks about as much like Ron Simmons as I look like Ron Simmons. But this was a figure that I just really liked. They haven't really done a lot of great Nation of Domination stuff. They did a Mark Henry, I believe. But I would love to be able to get the whole group, get Kama, get D-Lo, get Rocky, all that stuff. I've always been a really, really big Ron Simmons fan, so I wanted to pick this up. There was an Elite they did of him a couple years ago, of him in his WCW gear, and I actually have the original WCW Galoob figure of him in that gear, and I'd love to be able to kind of get that at some point, but unfortunately at this point that figure has, that price has kind of gone through the roof. So another older figure. This thing was just too cool to pass up. It was a little bit more than I would like to spend on an older figure like this, but this is the SmackDown Series 5 Undertaker, and this is like straight Ministry of Darkness. I grew up actually a WCW fan, so I didn't watch a ton of 90s and Attitude Era WWF stuff here and there. I was always a big Kevin Nash fan because I saw him as Diesel a few times, and then when he showed up in WCW, then I was like firmly in the WCW plant, and I was going to stay there forever. But I do remember every so often flipping on Raw and seeing The Undertaker, and I always thought that the way he transformed, because the last time I saw him previous to that was when I was like renting old Royal Rumbles from a local rental store, and he still looked like he did when he debuted, like the other figure that we just looked at. But there was a very specific memory I have. It was the night on Raw where I believe he was either sacrificing Midian, he was doing something to Midian where he like plunged a dagger into his chest, and that always just really stuck with me. So I'm very, very partial to Ministry of Darkness era Undertaker, so seeing this was hard to pass up. All right. Next up, another newer figure, but it took me forever to find, and that is the newest Miss Elizabeth figure. I have one of the older ones, and when this came out, I absolutely had to have it. This is from the Mega Powers Explode. This is when she took the dress off and revealed the bikini and distracted everybody. And, if you're a wrestling fan, you know the story. So to get this one is pretty cool. I would like to kind of complete the set, get a Hogan. There is a Mega Powers Macho Man figure that I'd like to be able to have with it. But anytime they do anything Randy Savage related or Miss Elizabeth related is something I usually hop on to. Then I believe this is actually second to last wrestling figure that we got. This is the new Ultimate Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Like I said, I grew up a WCW fan, huge NWO fan. One of my favorite figures of all time was one of the WCW figures that they did. It was nothing special, but to me, it looked like they just put in a little bit extra effort to it, and that was a Hollywood Hulk Hogan figure that they did, and I just really, really loved the way that figure looked. And when I saw that they announced this, I was like, all right, I gotta hop on this. This is the Hogan that I really grew up with. I do have faint memories of him still in the red and yellow in the early 90s. And when I was watching WCW, I started watching WCW like right before the NWO happened. So he was getting ready to turn. He actually wore black a few times before officially, turning heel. But this is an absolutely fantastic figure. I will point out one thing though. On the back here, they've got him playing guitar like he would in his entrance. I know how these figures are made. There is no possible way on earth this is a pose you're actually going to be able to get this figure into. That belt will fall. There's no way that's going to happen. If if for some reason they are able to, that's the way I will pose them. These are all getting opened up. They're not gonna stay in there. I just kind of kept some of these in the package for the purposes. I knew I was gonna film this video. Actually, some of the figures we're gonna see I actually opened because I tried filming this a couple days ago and it didn't look great. So unfortunately, I opened a few. But one more wrestling thing to get to before we move on, and that is definitely one of the coolest things I found recently, and that is the Macho King Hasbro with the original crown and the original scepter. There are a lot of knockoffs. There are a lot of reproduced accessories. These are legit. The guy I bought it from, who owns a toy shop about an hour and a half away from here, somebody that you can trust, somebody that's not trying to pull one over on you, and he knew what this was worth. I knew what this was worth. I asked him how much. He gave me a price, and it was a price that I wasn't going to try and negotiate for 1 second. And just to show that it is a legit Macho King. Some people on eBay will show you the figure with the scepter and the crown, and you get it, and it does not have the Macho King on the back of the trunks, but 100% legit. It's not in perfect shape. There's definitely some issues with it, but actually, aside from some scrapes and scuffs on the boots, he is in pretty good shape. So yeah, that's gonna wrap up the wrestling stuff, and we'll be back with movies, TV shows, and video games, and all that good stuff. So we actually ended up at Walmart the other day, and I was able to find a couple of things that I knew existed but hadn't seen. They weren't like super on my radar, but to be honest, like that weekend, I was just really in the mood to kind of pick up a couple of toys. And so I grabbed the new Hasbro Transformers RED. I'm not sure if they're calling it RED or just Red, but this is the Soundwave. This came out last year, but I haven't seen it in stores until this year. This figure is really nice. It really harkens back to the G1 days. Obviously not metal, it's plastic, but one of the things that is pretty cool here is that how do you do it there? There's a little tab. His chest piece opens up. Oh. And there's actually a little cassette tape in there that you can place in. That's actually an accessory. He doesn't want to come out right now, but it does come separately with it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. You just put it next to it. And then I was like, oh, wait, what's that button on his shoulder? And I pressed it. And it opened up and you were able to put it in. He has a little gun with him, shoulder-mounted cannon. He was always one of the coolest Transformers to me because he turned into a cassette tape, and I just really love that. These do not transform. They would probably be way more expensive. I think this was $15, wasn't super expensive at all, but definitely pretty cool. And then another classic 80s franchise, Ghostbusters. They re-released a bunch of the real Ghostbusters figures. I got State Puft Marshmallow Man. He is one of my favorite 80s movie villains of all time. He is just so dumb and so stupid and so goofy looking, and he was terrifying in the movie as a child. But yeah, he is definitely cool. One of my favorite characters. I actually have on vinyl, years and years and years ago, they did a release of the Ghostbusters theme on vinyl, and it came in what they called a State Puft Marshmallow packaging, and it's actually this squishy white plushy kind of material that they claimed was scented like marshmallows. It smells like, nowadays it certainly smells like nothing, but I remember when I got it, it didn't smell like anything. And it comes with his little comes with like a little bow like this that slides on almost like it's his hat. So yeah, definitely a special connection to this guy, and I was really glad to get it. Then the last of what came from the first trip I took this year are to see these new was really nuts, and these were dirt cheap. This is obviously based off of the cartoon, but for me, I remember the arcade game, and that's the arcade game Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. And this is kind of like the main character, Jack Tenrec. These are the two variations they did of him. I was hoping to kind of get some other characters, but I wasn't going to pass these up for the price that they were going for. And they're in good shape. They're not really beat up at all. The guy just had them setting on a pegboard, like they would have hung in any Kmart or, wherever they came from. I don't remember seeing an original sticker on this anywhere, so I'm not really sure where these came from. But yeah, definitely like just such a wild kind of thing to find. And I don't know how many people would really remember the cartoon. Arcade collectors and like beat 'em up aficionados would certainly know the the game because it's appeared on plenty of like best of beat 'em up lists online for years and years and years now, and it is such like a weird thing. Cadillacs and dinosaurs. It's a really weird combination. So yeah, really excited to get those. We actually went down to a specific store that sells toys that I always have had really good luck at. And I don't know if it's just because of COVID or whatever it is, they had nothing for toys. It is legitimately the first time I've ever been to that store and walked out empty-handed, and that was a little sad. But I didn't want to make the trip a bust. As we packed up the whole car, everybody's in the car. You don't want to just be like, all right, I guess we're driving back after we drove almost 2 hours to get here. So I Googled to see if there were any other toy stores in the area, and they were. There were. So everything else I'm going to show came from there, and they had stuff that I've seen online but I've never seen in person, and I saw this pretty close after we walked in, and it is the Storm Collectibles Mortal Kombat Scorpion. And I actually wrote it down here because there's a few different ones of these, and this is let me check my notes real quick. This is the 2019 one, so this is not the Comic-Con one. They may have done one more. There's one where he has like the skull face. But this is the 2019 regular non-convention one. These aren't cheap, and they had it, it's sold out online, and they had it for less than what it would have been, if I wanted to buy it on eBay. I think it's new. Some of the stuff there, and this is the one thing I wish they would have done, they didn't mark if some of their stuff was new or not. And at first you wouldn't think of that, because you could see, for the most part with toys on like the blister packs, you can tell immediately if they're new or not, if they've been opened, because you can't really reseal those. And I really didn't think that I would have had to worry about this stuff not being new, but one of the things I actually noticed was missing an accessory, and then I realized it had been opened, and I got a little worried because one of the accessories here is missing, but it fell. It's on the bottom of the box. I could look in and see it. But this thing is nuts. I've been a huge fan of just looking at Storm Collectibles figures for a really long time. I've never been able to pick up one of them. They are expensive. I'm not gonna lie. I don't like spending near $100, or in some cases those figures are more than $100. Thankfully this guy wasn't. I don't like spending that much on toys. I'd rather get a few things than just one big thing for, most of the time. I'll indulge every once in a while. I try not to spend too much money on the stuff I collect. Like for vinyl, I only buy used. I very rarely get new vinyl. But yeah, so this thing was super cool to get. They had a ton of Storm Collectible stuff. They had a handful of Street Fighter figures. They had Cyrax from this series, from Mortal Kombat, and they might have had one of the King of Fighters figures. If they had the King of Fighters Terry, I would have gotten that, but they didn't have that. I kind of wish I got more, but it also seemed like this was the only one that they only had one of. The other ones they had multiples of, so I wasn't too concerned, especially the Cyrax. They had like 10 of them. I get the feeling that either they got them for cheap somehow, or they thought they were going to sell real easy, and they didn't for them. But this was super cool to get. That is Iron Giant. And for as big as this figure is, it actually takes batteries. It has light up eyes. I thought this was going to be like $50-$60. It's like $20, and I was pretty excited about that. They had two of these, and they were two different figures. They had two of these, and the other one, he was posed out like he is in the. I should use my left hand, but he was posed out like this in the movie. And it had the hamburger, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. He's holding the hamburger. He actually wasn't holding the hamburger. It was just a piece of cardboard that came in it. And that one was slightly more. So when I saw this one, I was like, okay, this is much, this is less, and it looks just as good. They were both Diamond Select figures. And I was like, I'm going to hop on this. Oddly enough, my wife has never seen this movie. And I was like, how have you not? She's like in that prime age group that she would have seen this movie. But yeah, this is like a super cool figure. And I really love the tiny Hogarth they have right there, so you can either put him in your palm or maybe have him sit up on your shoulder, like on the back of the box here. He's sitting up on his shoulder, so that is really neat. One of my favorite animated films for sure. So I had actually made my purchases, and we were getting ready to leave the store, and I I can't remember why, but I had to check my phone for something. And when I did, I turned around and I saw this. And I went nuts. Because these are things that I have looked at on eBay for a very long time. They're very expensive. They're only released in Japan. And that is the Persona 4 animation figures. And I got Yukiko. It was the only one that they had. And she was one of my favorite characters. Persona 4 is one of my all-time favorite games. Top 5, easy. This is used. This has been opened. It is taped here, but it has been opened. This is missing a key accessory right there. Her fan that you can see right there on the back is missing, which unfortunately that is a very important accessory. That's how I would pose her once she gets out of the box. The price difference between this one and one on eBay that is sealed that has all the accessories was over $100. I do not think that that thing is worth $100. There's no way on earth I was going to pass this up. This was just such a cool kind of thing to see. We really don't see stuff like this in toy stores around here. I've only seen stuff like this when I travel to major cities. So this was a must buy for sure. They had a couple of these. They had 2 different ones. Should have got both, but I only got the one, and that is the Tactical John Wick from Diamond Select. I've been really hesitant on getting any of the John Wick figures. Most of them do not look like Keanu Reeves, and to be completely honest, this one doesn't look much like Keanu Reeves, but the price on this was far too good to pass up. This is from John Wick 2. He has the newer of the dogs. The other figure was the one from the first movie that has the beagle in it. But the accessories are cool. I dig the accessories. I love the mono black, suit look. These movies have quickly become some of my favorite movies. John Wick 3 is unbelievable. I mean, it is like legit cemented itself as one of the greatest action movies of all time. I mean, it is incredible what they have done with them. Those movies are so simple, but they've built up such an amazing world with the lore that they've made for themselves. And yeah, getting this was a no-brainer. I love the movies. I just hope in the future, maybe somebody like NECA picks up the license. They get it somehow. We can get some like really good, detailed Keanu Reeves looking figures. I think maybe the tough thing is there's like, what other characters would you do from the movies that are actually going to sell? So that's kind of maybe like the tough thing from a business perspective. But yeah, this is awesome. So the last thing was something I actually did order online. This came out last year, I believe, maybe the year before, and I missed it. I don't remember exactly why I didn't order it. I might have just completely forgotten about it. But it's made by a company that I really love, and that's Super 7. And they put some of these in stock last week or the week before, and I was able to get one, and I was super happy about that, from one of my all-time favorite movies, and that is the Reaction Robocop Ed 209 versus Mr. Kinney 2-pack. This thing is crazy. You can see the detail on him. He's got the bullet hole through his stomach. Ed 209 looks incredible, and I'm having a hard time figuring out if I want to take this out of the packaging. Like I said earlier, I pretty much take almost every single thing out of the packaging, but this is really, really well done. They have completely nailed the look of just a high quality Robocop figure. The reaction figures, I actually don't really have any. I think I have this one and maybe one other. I kind of just missed the boat on them. I think the only other one I have is one of the Papas from Ghost, the band Ghost. I have one of those. Got one of those as a birthday gift last year, I believe. And yeah, when this came up, I was like, I gotta have this. And now I really gotta kind of go out of my way to get the other figures. I want the Emil Toxic Waste figure and the Robocop figure. But yeah, this is one of my all-time favorite movie franchises, and to get something like this is just super cool. And I really love what Super 7 is doing. So yeah, definitely couldn't pass that up. So yeah, that kind of wraps it up for everything I got. I don't know how often I'm going to do these. I don't get to go out toy hunting as much as I would like. Honestly, half of it is a financial thing. You can't just blow all your money on toys and figures as much as you probably would want to. The other thing is, like I said, it's a location thing. We really have to travel, an hour and a half, 2 hours away to find anything decent. We don't really have anything around here. We have a fairly solid flea market, but nobody's going to that. It's actually shut down right now, and as things warm up. I'm sure they'll open it. It was open at one point last year, and I talked to a couple people that were regulars, and they're like, nobody has anything, so it's really not worth it. But yeah, as I pick stuff up, I'll do another one of these. Probably not for like individual figures, but anytime I kind of like can group a bunch of purchases together, we'll try and do it. So yeah, thanks for hanging out, and hopefully we do this again sooner rather than later.